Coherent just had the best quarter it's had in the past 5 years, the whole time I've been following the company, and I want you to hear my rant on this company. The sell side analysts have this company so wrong that the most uber bullish analysts had 1.67 billion for their quarter. They beat that by $20 million at 1.69. They only missed my number of 1.7, but they hit my number on guidance of 1.84 billion. They beat on the top line, they beat on margins, and they beat on the bottom line. The glide path that they're on right now, 7% sequentially, that's about 31-ish percent per year, but remember, it's accelerating. Here's what also people don't understand by looking under the hood. They sold businesses. If you sell businesses, obviously it comes out of your revenue. That hides true growth of the core business. Their data center business is growing 10% sequentially, or 44.5% if you annualize that. The industrial segment obviously took a hit of another 100 million, because why would you buy a 250,000, $500,000 laser right before you can write it off in 2026? It doesn't make any sense. These are the lasers that go in robotics heads, that do the manufacturing, that is the high ticket items that we want back in this country. Data center growing 10% year over year. Then in the out year, most analysts have high teens growth, dropping to high or low, teens digits for 2028. Coherent has 3-year contracts, Jim Anderson saying. They've never had this demand before. They are short on supply despite massively ramping supply because demand is so strong. Lumentum said the same exact thing. This company is at the forefront of commercialized physics. You could find some scientists doing some cooler stuff, I'm sure. They are manipulating photons in the same way that ASML, NVIDIA, and TSM are manipulating electrons for semiconductors. The markets that they're growing into, along with Lumentum, OCS, transceivers, $10 to $15 billion markets that are growing at 60% per year. You should honestly look at the market reports of this and try to backdate it, because these guys are just like I don't know, bigger. It's going to get bigger, and it is going to get bigger. What these guys are going after, the photonic space, I think ultimately, I don't know what kind of products are going to take it. I think in 10 years, this is easily $1 trillion market. And why wouldn't you bet on Jim Anderson, who's an MIT genius? In fact, his CFO is a genius. I usually mute the CFO, but I hear her talk about margins. I'm like, oh damn. They're the only people that can manufacture a 6-inch indium phosphide wafer. They're the only company in the world that can do that at this point in time. That cuts their costs in half because the surface area is in half. That is a huge manufacturing advantage, as Jim Anderson has shown that he has a manufacturing edge since his days at Lattice Semiconductor, where he 10x'd it. This is a company that is growing double what analysts think. Their margins are going from 37, now it's 39, next quarter it's going to be 40 or higher, and then it's ultimately going to be 42%, they say. But why just 42%? Because they're talking about price optimization. You know what that means? Pricing power. They used to take down the transceivers of the last generation 10, 15% per year. They're no longer doing that. They don't need to. The 1.6T, they're raising the prices for, along with Lumentum, because networking, especially optics, is so crucial for this AI age. I understand the tech market is shit. It's been stressful to look at it. I correctly anticipated it. I've been trading Q puts, and yet it's stressful. And I think about Warsh and the future of the Fed balance sheet coming down. And I think, well, is this really going to help a company like Coherent? The answer is no, but the answer is also it doesn't matter. This is a company that's going to compound for you. I am pounding the table on a buy and hold. Do not trade this stock. You can do whatever you want, but I think you're going to get out too early for the opportunity ahead from this company. Price targets have to come up. Growth rates have to come up. The analysts have no idea. In fact, one Make-A-Wish analyst on the call, he asked Jim Anderson, he has one question, I would love a question. He goes, can you please explain the use cases for OCS, optical circuit switches? Imagine asking Jensen Huang, can you please explain the use cases for GPUs? Brother, I wrote a 30-page paper on optics, like an intro to optics for retail. You could have read that, man. Like, are you kidding? You get one question. The other analysts are asking like about next quarter supply. They're trying to get their numbers right for the next quarter, and they'll be wrong again. This is a company, out of all the tech names I'm pounding the table on, they are going to have a run rate of $9.5 billion just on this glide path. That's if there's no acceleration, right? $9.5 billion run rate in 4 quarters. I think their net margin is going to be 12% because the last time they had 37, 38% gross margins, they had a 10% net margin. Now they're going to 40 and 42. I don't see why 12 to 14% net margins aren't possible because they're both having pricing power and cutting costs because the CFO and Jim Anderson are great at increasing yield and cutting costs. Pounding the table on Coherent, my price target is no longer $500. It is probably $600 or $700. It doesn't matter. The market does not understand this company.